All right, guys, I'm going to help you review for your unit test that you're going to have this week. These are the 5 things that you need to know for your test. These are the 5 things that you need to have out. Number 1, your study guide that you're working on, that you're going to finish and have. So that's going to be the first thing that's going to help you. Number 2 is Georgia as a royal colony, so you need to have that open. Number 3, the defense of Georgia's colony. Number 4, your Quizlet. And number 5, the chart of the Highland Scots, Salzburgers, Malcontents, the groups of Georgia chart. So that's the 5th thing. So when we look at these things, the first thing that we'll look at is your study guide. So when you get done with your study guide, you will be able to answer all of these items on your study guide. Where do we get the information from the study guide? The information from the study guide comes from these things. So the first thing we're going to look at is your groups of Georgia charts. These were the first people that came to Georgia. The Jews, the Salzburgers, the Highland Scots, and the Malcontents. So there's questions on your test about each of them. These were the 3 different ethnic groups that came. Jews, Salzburgers, Highland Scots. They mostly came for religious freedom, but the Oglethorpe recruited the Highland Scots. The Malcontents were the people that once they got to Georgia were upset at things that were going on in Georgia. So they were upset with land ownership with women, things could not grow well, other land policies, and wanting slavery. They saw what South Carolina was doing, and they had a very growing economy, and so they saw that South Carolina had slavery, and they wanted slavery as well. And so when we look at these things, these people are important because they make up a diverse part of Georgia. That is what this means. Evaluate the role of the diverse group. So there were different people that came to Georgia. Okay? So the second thing that we need to look at is Georgia as a royal colony. Okay? So this is what you created that was left on the board. Georgia had 3 laws approved by the British government. Rum and other spirits were illegal. They had to have a permit to trade with Indians. Slavery was illegal. We go into eventually why is slavery allowed, that rice is the main crop of early Georgia, then tobacco. So what crop would we not see early on? And that would be cotton. Okay, cotton is nowhere involved yet in anything that we're talking about. So we also distinguish from 1732 to 1751 that is when Georgia was a trustee colony. And then Georgia becomes a royal colony in 1752 until 1776. Then we get into the royal governors. Georgia's first legislature was made up of 2 houses, a lower house and an upper house. The king had all the powers. Who could vote? You had to have 50 acres of land and be a white male to be able to vote. Who could be a member of this lower house? You had to have 500 acres of land to be a white male. And so we talked about how things were kind of unfair to the average normal citizen. Then we got into the 3 royal governors of John Reynolds, who's the first governor, Henry Ellis is the second governor, and James Wright is the third governor. The biggest thing that you need to know about these 3 is that John Reynolds was the first, that he really wasn't successful. The king removed him. Henry Ellis was successful. He helped them establish a budget, create different laws and rules. He got a lot of lands from the creek, but he was an older man who got sick, and so he went back to England. And the third royal governor was James Wright. He lasted for 16 years. He was very popular, and so he was the one who helped establish Georgia as the fastest growing colony in all of the colonies. The next thing is the defense of Georgia's colony. When we look at the defense, we looked at Fort Oglethorpe, Fort Frederica, Fort Augusta, the Battle of Bloody Marsh, all of these things. The trading with the Native Americans of deerskins and beaver. Oglethorpe's going to go back and forth. Sometimes he's going to bring troops back with him. He's going to trade and travel and set up relations with the Creek and the Cherokee Indians, mostly to help protect the colony from the Spanish. So the Native Americans, the Creek and the Cherokee, agreed not to help the Spanish in the war. The southern fort of Frederica was so important because it was the first line of defense. We talked about how St. Augustine was an epic failure, and then the Battle of Bloody Marsh, where Spain tries to attack Fort Frederica. So we win that battle. Georgia does. And so the Spaniards retreat. And so this was a very important mark in keeping Georgia a colony. The next thing that you need to look at is your Quizlet. And I've added to your Quizlet, so you can go and search MRB WCMS. I've added some new things to it from what your quiz was over. So these are the things that we've worked on this week. The 3 laws of Georgia's colony, when Georgia became a slave state, or became allowed for slavery, 1750. Rice, trustee colony, all of these things I've added to it, the royal governors. So all of your quiz that you took last Friday, I'd study that quiz again. A lot of the vocab is on it. It's very important to know the background of that. So these are all the things that you need to make sure that you are studying. When you compile all of them together, you're going to be able to answer your Unit 3 colonization review. Okay, so you're going to be able to answer your study guide. Who was Henry Ellis? So you're just taking the things from the things that we've gone over from these documents, and you're answering them here. Okay, why was the Battle of Bloody Marsh so important? That's directly in your notes. So if you directly use things from your notes, you're going to be able to come up with most of these answers. Remember that if you have your agenda signed, that you have studied for 20 minutes and your parents sign your agenda, I will give you 5 extra credit points on this test. So you're kind of a fool if you don't do that. Okay, that's a quick, easy 5 points. So use my gift to you to your advantage.